Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Rory?
Okay. Spring over here, so it's nice.
Where are you exactly?
In the state of Massachusetts by the water.
Okay, oh, that's lovely. That's really nice. Well, it's spring over here too, but that's pretty much the same as winter in the UK and summer sometimes too. Yeah,
Well, now with climate change, then we're blurring winter, spring, summer, and fall, unfortunately. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I sometimes wonder if that's always been the case here. We preempted it with that funny island weather. But I'm really happy that you agreed to speak to me. I've only got one of your books because of the subject that I'm interested in. But yeah, I read this, Drums Along the Congo, a few years ago, and I really loved it. And I loved it because of the no holds barred, realistic retelling of your trials and tribulations on expedition. And I thought, well, people would value this. They would learn something from it more than this idealistic, let's go out there and find something nobody's ever found before, spirit or an idea of exploration. But they would learn really what you have to go through, on a boots on the ground level to do that. So I thought I'd just ask you a couple of questions and let you talk away and see what you've got to say.
Sure.
Awesome. What I wanted to start with, of course, is what attracted you initially to the legend of mokele-mbembe.
What you were talking about just a minute ago, the whole idea of the spirit of adventure, the idea of going to a white blank in the map and filling it in with color of some sort, of basically of dipping into the unknown. Uh, and a good friend of mine who's a professor of biology egging me on saying, we really don't know, we don't know everything. There's new stuff, biota, being discovered every day. So is there a dinosaur? Long shot, not taking any bets. But at the same time, she said, you never know. Definitely. So that was seemed to me to be a good lead in. And then, of course, the literature. There's Havelman and et al. Sanders was really my most favorite of the
Mm,
authors because he too had a very realistic approach to it.
hmm
Um, of what it was like as an animal trafficker in essence, but then hearing these strange things in the jungle and then realizing that, yeah, you hear strange things in the jungle all the time that don't actually match experience or expectations. And then think back to when I was a kid working in a grocery store, unpacking, a box of bananas, saying,
mm,
where the hell do they come from? And a
mm.
pineapple. Uh, as a child of the suburbs of New York City, yeah, sure, plug me in. Get me into an H. Rider Haggard novel. I'd love to go there.
Wow. Well, I mean, I've been although I've never been on a large expedition like that myself. I've been imbued with that spirit, also a city boy my entire life, and I can see why it would excite people, and and I think that's why I first got hold of your book. I thought I read the back. Okay, this really seems like an in-depth view, of what to expect on an expedition. I think what people would really benefit from listening to this is finding out how you would prepare for such an expedition, and then after that, when you arrive in the location, if the contrast between your expectations and what you experienced whilst trying to enact this expedition were were met, or did you find something completely different altogether once you got there?
Well, first we have to remember you have to turn back time a little. This all happened for me in the mid 80s.
Hmm
Uh, and this was a time when, one, I had a little dough, started a company and cashed out, um, and was deciding that, okay, time to leave the city, time to and get back to what we were talking about before, indulge in the spirit of
hmm
adventure. And previously, I don't know if you know this, that I used to be a sailor, and I
Mm.
sailed in the Observer single-handed transatlantic race, which is all
Wow.
about the unknown.
Mm.
And I made 4.5 passages, the fraction being a time when I capsized smack dab in the middle of the ocean and was adrift for 5 days.
Wow.
Um, so with that kind of background and a willingness to try stuff, I took off for the Congo, Brazzaville, um, after speaking to, you know, very few friends about this at all, and literally went to a sporting goods store in New York City, bought myself a couple of pairs of sneakers that I thought would work good in mud, uh, went to a tropical disease doctor
Mm.
who specialized in tropical, of course, he was a tropical disease expert, but knew the Congo from previous experience
Mm.
working for charities, who briefed me on the drugs I had to take and, on and on. And at the same time, I hired a former, before leaving, I hired a former special forces officer to teach me about jungle survival because
Mm.
I was determined to do this by myself. So we had gone to a park in New York City uh, where sticks turned into snakes. And
Mm.
he would say, he would quiz me, black with a yellow stripe,
Mm.
moving slowly. Or is it? What do you do? Where do you go? You're lost. What do you do? Where do you go? How do you get out
Wow.
of a difficult situation? Basic stuff that, again, I'm back to a suburban kid with
Mm.
really no experience in the jungle, and spent 2 weeks with this guy, 6 hours a day, and then 3 hours after each tutoring session in a bar, getting lectured. So it was
Wow.
like hiring a professor to teach me the basics of survival, as well as to teach me how to understand the jungle, which
Mm.
would be the oral tradition that he tried to get across to me later on while drinking in a pub. Um, with that, that's it. um, and a knapsack and a camera, and should have bought a better camera, but I didn't. I went and landed in the Congo. I didn't know anybody. I didn't go with anybody. Uh, and I expected, okay, you go, you get a permit, you leave, you pay for probably entrance, and you figure it out from there.
Wow.
No, 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 no.
I'm
No.
starting to understand, Rory, that you're a lot braver than I realized at the beginning.
Braver or stupider, I don't know.
I
Ignorance
think
is,
they're
is
very
really
similar
helped.
things. Yeah.
Uh, and sure, guilty. I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. And
Wow.
that aided me, is that certain naivete aided me.
Mm.
But at the same time, having had this sailing experience and being able to deal with the unknown and try to
Okay. Yeah.
figure out stuff, be it the wind, a storm coming, and everything else that's involved in the elements, the
Mm.
stuff that's really important, wind, uh, water, and the sky. So I figured that I could do this as translate a lot of what I learned at sea
Yeah.
in the jungle. Wrong, wrong, wrong. They're very different. And yet, again, I have to learn that myself as I go and on the run in the hoof. Okay. So I get to Brazzaville, and no, you can't get a permit just by walking in. First off, I don't speak French very well. I can read
Mm.
it, but I can't speak it. And when I do, I only confuse people and speak
Okay.
louder, which gets me nowhere. Luckily, the government assigned an agent who became basically my employee and friend
Okay.
to watch me. Am I a government? You're one
Okay.
person coming
Yeah.
in. Who are you really? You're this wacky American looking for a
Mm.
dinosaur in the middle of the country? Are you an oil prospector
Uh-huh.
looking to um, do geolocation exams of the middle of the jungle? We have
Uh-huh.
oil,
Okay.
and we covet our oil. We don't want you to even, be
Okay.
sniffing around this area, or or what? So there was a long process of convincing them that, yeah, I'm just this weird American over here,
Looking
intent
for a
on
dinosaur all by
looking for a
myself.
dinosaur.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not really, if I see one, that's great. But what I really want to do is just to verify the
Mm.
idea.
Mm.
I was never after the exact diameter of a dinosaur's footprint. What really lightened my brain was this whole idea that somebody could believe in this,
Mm.
that the locals could invest their spirit in this animal, that
Mm.
that kind of animism exists, and how exciting that might be to participate in that. I didn't know, and well, here was a good shot at trying to do that.
Yeah, I
And
think that's, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I jumped in. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that actually is a really good point. Is that there seems to be a local belief about the animal, and I just wonder, what did you find was the general knowledge of the mokele-mbembe and the different parts of the Congo that you visited, and was there a general awareness that it could lead to jobs or treks into the jungle or tourism? And did that complicate finding genuine witnesses or guides to help you?
I never found a genuine witness to
Okay.
mokele-mbembe. No, it was all about money. It
Uh-huh.
was, from the local viewpoint, was I was an American. I had a wallet.
Mm.
Uh, I'm coming into their turf, and yeah, you want to see the beast? Okay, we'll
Okay.
take you on a tour.
Okay.
No, it was business for them. I never met anyone who was spiritually involved with the
Mhm.
beast, except at the very end. And whether that was a show or not,
Mm.
as if you've paid the price of admission and now they'll
Ah,
give you
okay.
a certain amount of satisfaction. I'll never know.
Okay.
But what made the whole trip extraordinary, or what the kids say, awesome, is the ability to go through the jungle, to collect different biota plants, and to examine this up front, to live inside the canopy, um, and to be able to color in what was a white blank on a map and still remains so that the satellites can't pierce the canopy.
Mm.
So walking in this area or 50 yards off of a normal path, you may be the first person in years or ever, God knows, who knows, through this area. What kind of animals live there? Um, mokele-mbembe was in many ways, certainly for the villagers in Boa, that was a ticket toward a hunting trip
Mm.
and a demand of shotgun shells. Everybody had shotguns. Nobody had the ammunition. So of course you bring the ammunition in with you,
Okay.
and you bring a lot of booze with you for just the paddle ride to Boa from Mapina.
Uh-huh.
Um, every chief gets a largesse and a gift, and
Okay.
that gift better be good. So yeah, that's easy. You spend your money on shotgun shells and wine and hard liquor.
So essentially, there's each village or each head of each village demands a rider for the privilege of entering their territory, and the villagers, I suppose, become guides or at least lookouts for you in the jungle as you're going ahead, telling you about the possible dangers and whether the dinosaur can be found. Um, and in your book, there's a big section at the beginning where essentially, you're just trying to get out of Brazzaville, and I was very interested, from I suppose, from a social point of view, if that current, yeah, all-pervading current of low-level corruption and poor administration that kept you starting, beginning your expedition, is that an inbuilt feature, do you think, of Congolese culture, or do you think you're just singled out because you're a Westerner, as you mentioned before? Would it have been easier if you were a local from Brazzaville with some money who was able to just head off into the jungle?
If you were a local from Brazzaville and headed off to the jungle, it was good luck to you. You would check in with the local police prefect, and you could
Hmm.
do what you wanted.
Okay.
As a Westerner, uh, I needed permits, and you should be aware I never paid a dime. So in the sense of
Uh-huh.
corruption, I never,
Okay.
a penny never came out of me. I paid fees.
Yeah.
And certainly consider yourself the director of national forests for the government of Brazzaville.
Okay.
Ultimately, you're the guy who will get the phone call if from the American embassy if anything happens to me.
Okay.
And
Okay.
what a drag. I don't want this guy. The last thing I need
They've
is
got to
this
go and search for
wacky
you.
American
Exactly. Yeah.
going in, and I don't even know who he is,
Mm.
really. And now it's become my responsibility, my department's responsibility. And oh, damn, the last thing I need is to have some counselor agent on my rear
Mm.
because Mr. Nugent is missing or sick or, God help us, dies. I don't want to meet him. I don't want to know anything about him. That's the reality of it all.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you, as the outsider, really better recognize that. I'd been a journalist a little bit before this. I became a journalist, as a real gig afterwards. And first thing any outsider really needs to do is to understand the situation you're putting other people in.
Mm-hmm.
When you get there, you're a problem.
Mm.
And it's up to you to solve the problem, to be able to assure the government, up the chain of command in the government, that you can get by. You're going to come out of this alive. You're going to spend some money, and you're going to have something nice to say. So you're not going to be this raving bitch, swearing, "Why can't I get this?" It being the nasty white outsider. We're American. Nobody wants to be that person or to deal with that person. And obviously, you understand that the agent assigned to you at a low level has to make reports.
Mm-hmm.
And if he thinks you're an asshole, that's how it's going to go up the chain of command.
Okay. Okay.
And it's as simple as that,
Yeah.
and as personable and understandable as that. And so, if you were to go into the situation, you really have to recognize what you're doing to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And how your perception is. And in this case, as much as I thought, okay, I can go through the process, I immediately understood, whoa, whole new game. And I have to understand how it's played here. Not from my view, but from their view. And I'm a problem. So I have to solve their problem for them, for me. And that means making friends. That means proving yourself through whatever it takes, by reaching out to government officials, by hanging out in a hotel bar that you never really want to hang out in, and buying a drink for a guy you never met before and you probably will never meet again, who undoubtedly is going to say something to somebody else.
Okay.
So it's a matter of being extra polite and generous. And you got to remember the whole time that everybody's looking at you as an outsider who wants something, and you're going to have to be willing to pay for it.
Okay.
I only had limited funds. When it came time to actually leave Boa and to assemble a hunting party, the extraction of money was, I just threw up my hands and said, look, take whatever I have, all of it, just enough to allow me to get back to Brazzaville. That's all I ask. And it's yours. And everything else I got and I brought here, it's yours. That solved everything.
Okay. Okay. Why wouldn't people, especially in, I suppose, a region, a country that's economically deprived, why wouldn't they look for advantage in such a situation? A big expedition, it could be, it could set up somebody's year, I suppose, from that perspective.
It's
And
payday.
yeah,
Absolutely.
payday. Why not? Why
You're
not?
this large Japanese expedition coming in with a helicopter. Whoa. Oh, yeah, fellas.
Yeah.
I used to have a vet that used to charge his customers by the car they drove in on. And I found that to be very reasonable. And I also, understand the position of the locals in Boa. There's no industry per se.
Yeah.
Mokele-mbembe is as close as they have to a moneymaker. And it's not so much a moneymaker as it is a provider for the food for the community. So, I mean, my guides, the three guides, they were on a hunting trip. It wasn't so much about it. They were on a hunting trip and making sure I got to where I was going, Lake Teely, and then coming back, loaded down with green monkey right at the start of the age of AIDS. So,
Yeah. There you go. Well, that's encouraging at least. But you talk about actually all the things you have to do, putting yourself out there, proving yourself to the locals. And the book actually starts with a very descriptive scene of you enduring a humiliating cleansing ritual performed by a witch doctor and viewed by curious onlookers in his village to, I suppose, get a blessing or some sort of local acceptance of your trip. What were you thinking while you agreed to that and while it was happening?
well, first off, the agent who was, helping me to guide me through the city, this happened in Brazzaville, we weren't getting anywhere. And his take that at least I accepted was you should be purified. If you want to go see the god, you got to get rid of all the poisons in you. And let's go. But it was also a setup of how I would react while being totally in the hands and in the presence of the Congolese. And he was grading me, and I understood that. And I felt that if this is the exam, I'll go with it. Sure, I'll try it. And plus, it was never explained to me exactly what was going to happen. And in fact, huh? Precisely, I'm taken to a sort of an off-center area of the city, and lots of tiny walled houses or compounds, actually, where one family will live, brother, mother, father. But people can see over the wall or they hear the noise, they come in, and the witch doctor is brought in, sees an American, throws up his arms. Nobody told me it's American. His stink is too much. The poisons, oh my God. Dennis Sassou Nguesso, who was the president of Brazil at that time, was a socialist toward Russia. I'm an American and a capitalist. And I got it. But this comes with the turf. I mean, you got to deal with that.
Yeah.
And a substance that comes out of an old, like a Fanta bottle, a Coke bottle, is poured on my head. It's a mixture of honey and, of course, secret potions. It could be straight honey for all I know. And the witch doctor does his thing. And meanwhile, the real purification comes when every insect within, maybe a kilometer or two, gets a smell of the honey that's open and being poured over me. Turns me into this emerald eye mat of just different colored flying and crawling insects nibbling on my skin. And now a whole, now maybe 40 to 50 people are gathered.
And you're totally naked, right? You're naked. Yeah.
Absolutely naked. Because everybody wants to see the naked white guy. And he's totally humiliated, me.
Yeah.
But how does he react? And so now I had 40 witnesses to my exam, my demonstration of, all right, man, you got to roll with it. No matter how uncomfortable this is, no matter how totally screwy it is, deal with it and be smart about it. If I start, only halfway, if I flunk, basically, if I don't go through with this. And I'm going to have people just laugh at me rather than people go, okay. I went through it. Something they probably wouldn't have done themselves.
Yeah.
It's just human nature. And just imagining yourself on the other side, looking at this naked white guy thinking, we're going to break
they hazed you. They hazed
basically,
you, essentially. Yeah.
And are we going to break you with this little performance? And the answer I hoped was no. But man, let's cut it short if we can. And everybody seemed to understand that. But in any event, it worked to my benefit. It opened a lot of doors.
Okay. But I think earning the respect, sometimes unconventionally so, of the people with whom you've come to spend time, as you mentioned, essentially ask for something personal and private. As you said, it's revered in some elements as the god dinosaur, a godlike creature, at least a spirit of the forest, a venerated spirit. And you, or I, if I was there, as the profane, is asking for permission to visit the god. And why not, put that person through a bit of trial, by fire or by honey and insects, and see how they do. I completely understand it. I really do.
Good, because I mean that was my take as well, and there wasn't much choice involved.
No, exactly.
Let's be honest, man. But there was the choice to freak out.
Yeah.
To just slam everybody. What are you doing to me? Or just what you're talking about. Deal with it.
Well, well done. I think that it has a real Indiana Jones kind of feel to it. Covered in honey and bugs, naked in the forest, being laughed at by locals. It's an ultimate prank. Talking about this reverence for mokele-mbembe as some kind of god or a forest spirit. Did you encounter that? Did you encounter this deep reverence? Maybe perhaps when you got to Lake Telly and met some of the people there, which I'd like to hear more about. Did you encounter this reverence for the animal from a spiritual point of view, or was it all more or less about, well, the animal is dangerous, it's rare, we don't go near it? What did you see from the locals?
From the get-go in Brazzaville, one understands that the locals, that animism is an important part of the culture and society. That you're walking along or you're driving along the road and there's just a hard left, and then you go back right because they're not going to cut the tree. There's a tree spirit in that. And if the witch doctor doesn't come to ask the spirit to leave, or if he can't get the spirit to leave, that tree stays in place.
Wow.
Nobody wants to mess with this spirit. And it's magnificent in various forms. So it's very common throughout the Congo to see people who will visit the witch doctor after they've taken Holy Communion at some Catholic Mass, thanks to their, the French colonial influence. That both of these things can coexist. And that's an amazing and at the same time ennobling, to me, part of the culture of the Congo, is that they can accept this idea of the living spirit in pretty much everything they see. It's not so much like our culture, at least in America, of, the myth of the dollar bill. This was much more about nature, and it was much more nature-based. And to an outsider like myself, that was incredibly enlivening and enjoyable. And it explained a whole lot of how a beast or a mythical animal of any quality, like mokele-mbembe, can assume this position in the pantheon of the spirit world. This leftover thing that their parents and grandparents were talking about, a reification of the lore. Far out.
Wow.
So that was everywhere. In Boa, while people are taking your dollar bill, at the same time, there's a reverence for the forest. And mokele-mbembe happens to be part of that pantheon. Whether or not it exists is the same as the spirit. We don't know, but we're willing to believe that it does. the spirit of that tree or the spirit that's behind that monkey. Nobody shouted when killing a monkey or dinner, shouted, "This is great." Everybody was very thankful and sorry for the monkey. I gotta
Oh,
live, but sorry.
you observed that.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
And it was an interesting part of the culture to be able to
Mm,
participate in. And I doubt I would have seen that if I had a companion
mm.
with me, and we would have been segregated from the whole.
Okay. Okay.
As an individual, nobody was really, I couldn't hang out with somebody else. I
Mm,
had to hang out with them or be by myself as an observer from a couple of feet away.
mm. So
So there was an integration that was allowed only because of the solo
mm,
aspect. That would never have happened if there was more than one.
that's quite amazing and quite unexpectedly beneficial to be able to see that. It also seems to show an element of compassion in that they didn't say, "Well, you're not like us, sit over there." They subconsciously or otherwise recognized that you were alone and ingratiated you into the group.
Pretty much, you just think of yourself if you're sitting in an outdoor cafe
Mm,
and two people who are lost, tourists, come up to you
mm,
and ask you for directions. Excuse me. I doubt you'll leave your seat, though you'll give them directions.
mm,
One lonely guy who comes
mm,
up, "Oh my, I'm lost. Can you help me get
mm,
to the subway, wherever I have to go in the underground?" You may get out of your seat and actually point that direction,
mm.
because you can easily see yourself as that one lone individual who really needs some help. Two people can bounce off one another. An
Yeah.
individual, oh boy, this guy's lost, or needs help, or whatever it is. And it's much easier to integrate yourself in everything around you. That's all.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that well, I suppose on top of that, the them having a companion, you've already identified that they have help, and and you're not needed to complement that. Going back to the identity of mokele-mbembe, is there from your time there, from your studies, is there any part of you that believes that it could indeed be a living creature, possibly a dinosaur based upon its description, or do you think the dinosaur interpretation has been latched onto by cryptozoologists and young Earth creationists and other groups to find evidence that I suppose proves their worldview for the creationists that evolution is perhaps not quite on par, or for cryptozoologists that we do indeed have animals, large animals that are awaiting discovery.
That's a question that's thrown to me a lot,
Mm.
um, often by creationists.
Yes.
I don't know. All I can say is read Darwin, um, an evolutionary theory. Is there a chance? Yeah. Is it as slim as can be? More so.
Mm.
And again, I repeat myself when I'm saying I was after the idea of a dinosaur,
Uh-huh.
not its diameter. The pictures, and people ask about the picture, the lousy picture you took. And certainly before even entering the forest, one had to confront the reality of taking a picture
Mm.
of a dinosaur. If you see the dinosaur, it's now, ethically, you got some problems to resolve. Because if you do come up with a very good picture, rather than in the fuzzy tradition of
Mm.
cryptozoology, of Loch Ness, Sasquatch, and everything else, of this whole idea, rather than, whoosh, oh my God, there it is. You now have to understand, what happens afterwards. The locals will lose control. They'll become the maids and the servants of the resort that's built there
Mm.
after the um, plutocrats in the capital city turn it into a national park that they, of course, own, and then
Mm.
will set up and agencies that will feed them dough, paid for by outside scientists that want to come in and are going to study. But the locals get dirt. And the poor dinosaur, if it is there with that color, is becomes this object of intense shutter clicking, and of just a world gone nutty. So if you want to come up with that great picture, that's up to you. I was, from the get-go, determined to come up with a fuzzy illustration of what it was about. That's all I was trying to promote. I certainly didn't want to see this area turned into an exclusive resort for very wealthy tourists to come in, a la Jurassic Park. I mean, screw that. And the locals get nothing. Actually, they'll lose the land. They will lose their history.
So the tribes will be displaced for the national
Absolutely.
park. Yeah.
Yes. What does that do except screw things up? I certainly didn't want to be part of that.
Do you think then that is there an awareness of that prospect among the local tribes around Lake Telly and other places where the animal has allegedly been sighted? Could that influence them to perhaps hide evidence that they would find if such
I don't think their
possible?
view is that. I don't think their view is that long.
Okay.
And then that they'd be actually, whoever saw it would gladly, and as they do, want to show you a footprint of mokele-mbembe that's been there for 3 years. Nothing lasts 3 years in the jungle. It's just there's things called rain.
The everlasting footprint has puzzled me, if I'm honest, for some time.
I mean, this is
it's wet. It's very wet.
Gobsmacked the idea that people would actually go and talk about seeing the the imprint of a ball-peen hammer. Things do not last in the jungle. I mean, it's part of the beauty of the jungle, and certainly part of my quest, which was to understand the jungle, its cycle, not the human end of it, but what lives there, what grows there, and how you can grow with it. Basically, how to integrate yourself into this environment. And that was with the humans in Brazzaville, and later with the flora and fauna in the jungle. And so I was much more covetous of the garbage bags of different flowers and of fauna and flora and fauna that I picked up, of beetles that didn't match any of the books I had, of identification books, that I thought, the idea of discovering some new little creature was great. And here's a place to do it. And I gave all of that to the university in Brazzaville. But that was what I was most proud of, was 2 garbage bags of stuff that I collected from the jungle. And to be able to give that and have the recipient of this in the biology department go, "This is great. Thank you." That's all I heard too. So I don't know.
No, well, I mean, but that's still amazing. And I suppose, mokele-mbembe, Bigfoot, Nessie, all of these things, they're the rock stars of cryptozoology, aren't they? And so often, for people who are interested in finding new species, as yet undiscovered species, most of that happens on quite a diminutive scale. You say beetles, frogs, lizards, amphibians, etc. And then occasionally, like the new species of whale, I think they found in Baja, California 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember what that's called. Something big comes along that was always there that you missed. But usually it's a small thing. And I wonder if there's, it's a bit of a distraction in cryptozoology, in the sense we're always looking for these flashy, shiny animals like Bigfoot and others, and mokele-mbembe, instead of saying, "Oh wow, there's a new species of owl," or as happened here in the UK 4 years ago, we discovered there was a subspecies of grass snake that was being here. We just didn't know. And I wonder how we can get people excited about those kinds of discoveries. The 2 bags of beetles and flowers. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? How can we?
Well,
Um,
now we're back to exactly what I was talking about in the beginning with my friend who's the biology professor at
mm,
Harvard, who said, we don't know. We're
yeah.
discovering stuff all the time.
Mhm,
The biota is huge, and we're just we only understand a small part of it.
mhm,
And her take was, of course you're going to find something new. Because you're going to be looking where people haven't looked before. And
mhm,
even and her point was, even what you were talking about, even when we look at something for a long time,
mhm.
we didn't look at it the right way.
Uh-huh.
And there it is, and it's different. And this is why it's different. But the chances of discovering that, situation like the Likouala region of the
Mhm.
world's greatest swamp, which is this area of Lake Tilly, uh, boy, the odds go way up, and love to play the odds. And so, sure, I'm hoping that a beetle that I named after, and offered up as to the school, the college in Brazzaville, as a suggestion, didn't match anything that I had in my identification books. Um, and I'm hoping that name sticks in the end.
What was the
Sister
name?
Marie, Sister Marie Bernadette, my fourth
Ah,
grade teacher and foe,
okay.
a
Ah.
nun in a Catholic school. Um, yeah,
Sounds very
I mean, to
formative,
me, that's the
Rory.
great.
Yeah,
Pardon me.
that sounds very formative. She's got a formative presence in your life. I can detect that much.
Um, but what you're talking about on the whole idea of, the big kahui, that
Mm,
thing,
mm,
Loch Ness. Yeah, it's the kind of discovery we'd all love to
yes.
make.
Yeah.
And yet there's a pregnant pause and a
Mm,
suffocating clause that comes of, yeah, but how much do we want to tell? I mean,
mm,
if it's actually real, because then
mm,
you've destroyed them. I mean, poor Loch Ness. I mean, honest to God. Um, but it's a great idea, and it gets kids interested and everybody
mm.
else interested, and it still has legs. Even though the guys who came up with the photo of, wonderful British tradition of, oh, it's a hoax. Come on, finally, we did it. We pulled it off. That's great. I think
Yeah.
add a little humor to this horrible, horrible, dark world we live in. This is wonderful.
Well, I think that, yeah, in one way, when I'm studying this, I think the mystery is important. And I was very intrigued what you said about securing, I suppose, the pristine nature of not only the region in which mokele-mbembe is supposed to live, but also the freedom of the people there. And my first thought would be, well, there will be commerce and there will be jobs, but you so rightly said that money won't go to the people who live there, and people might even lose their homes. The government there, I suppose, would have the power to just seal off the area, make these national parks, and which would be primarily um, tenanted by tourism and scientists and people who look like us coming to have a poke about and see what we can find. Just one last question before we go. In your book, as you say, there's a not very clear picture of a periscope-like object cut through the surface of Lake Telly that you captured. What I'm more interested in not is what the photo shows, but what you think you saw with your naked eye that time traveling through the lake. I don't expect you to say mokele-mbembe, but what do you
I
think?
saw a I saw a thing
Uh-huh.
in the shape of like an elegant French curve,
Mm,
moving through the water. Was it a cardboard cutout
mm,
propelled by one of the guides who wasn't with me and on a hunting
mm,
expedition? I don't know.
mm,
And that's the way I took it. And when uh, Raphael shouts to me and says, you cannot approach the God comes to you, and stops me from jumping into the pirogue.
Oh wow.
to row out to get a close shot of this thing. Lake Tili is not a pool; it's a large lake, several kilometers in diameter. Um, so I really, to get even a good blurry shot of this, I wanted to get closer, but they would have no part of it. Was it, an exercise in a program? They, wanted to give me a certain amount of satisfaction. I don't know the answer to that. Or was it this huge beast? Perhaps. Slim chances, but I can't say for certain, nor would I want.
That's a tough one, isn't it? It really is. Rory, thank you so much for agreeing to speak to me. I've been a big fan of the book for a long time, and it's helped me. It's kept me on the straight road during my research as well. Just let everybody know how they can find you online, where they could buy the book, and how to get in touch if they have any questions.
Sure, you can go to rorynugent.com. You can buy the book through Amazon. It's this new edition of the book. You can also get used copies. There are plenty in England. And you get my other books too, which are great.
Yes.
One is about the world's rarest duck, Search for the Pink-Headed Duck, which took me down the Brahmaputra River and through the Himalayas in searching for another cryptozoological mystery. Are these missing ducks, or are they someplace where we just don't know where to look? We've looked in the wrong places, or we've been looking the whole damn time and haven't seen them and confused them for a pochard. Same thing. And in many ways, from a writer's viewpoint, they're wonderful MacGuffins. Excuse me. They focus attention, but don't determine the action. And certainly for mokele-mbembe, here's this wonderful background to it all, this mystery, and it's in the middle of the Congo, and it aches of references to the past, and yet it's a very modern mystery.
Wow.
No conclusion.
It's, as I say, it's been a bucket list stop to talk to you about it. I'll be rereading the book very soon. Maybe I'll get the updated version actually, because it really is. It's the most brutally honest and descriptive account of a journey into an unknown territory that I've ever read, and it encourages me every day. I think should I get out there to the Congo at any point, I'll come well armed with everything that I need to know. Rory Nugent, thank you very much.
All right, good luck ahead to you and all your listeners.